Okay, for UN, she's she's also like so she's in 2019 the U.S. representative for International Model of UN Association and the newest member of the International Human Rights Commission, Geneva, where she served on recognized sovereign tribes, undocumented international culture, stateless, landless, and countless oppressed and displaced indigenous people around the world. Wow. So her resume goes on and on. This year, she was blessed to testify at January 2029 as NY New York City Commission on Human Rights on Pregnancy and Career Givers Discrimination. February 29, Council of the City of New York Committee Report of Infrastructure and Human Rights Division Committee of Women for Committee Oversight hearing on improving the gender and cultural diversity on monuments located in New York parks. And September 2019, NYC Pay Equity hearing as a commission by the New York State Commission of on Gender and Human Rights. So on September 25th, 2009, she received an assignment as a deputy member of Parliament for African Union representing the states of Africa Diaspora Mission 6th region. In November, she was newly appointed as a special consultative status as a director of women empowerment for United Nations Department of Economic and Social Council, Northern Citizen Committee Board. But her best accomplishment is being devoted Muslim and a mother of 4 daughters, Nana of 12 grandbabies, with one born just one day after the birth of her birth, this August 2000.
Wow.
I present to you Dr. Ammeena Ali. Okay, thank you.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that's a good bio. We will share her bio on our page. Again, the way I met Dr. Ali, not Dr. Ali's husband, who is what's his name again? Hananaya, right? So Hananaya Sabas. So we had a Gambian youth organization back to school last year, and he came there with his camera and he was filming and he was telling me about his interest with his wife, Dr. Ali, going back to Africa and buying a land there and settling over there. So that's when I become interested in talking to them. And then now that you hear all this great accomplishment, and then she's one of the person that can offer a lot to what we stand for, which is civic education and global issues. So today we're gonna talk about those 2 essential issues. So with that, I'm gonna introduce our panelists. We have Sam Ceesay, right next to me on the screen. Sam, can you just, okay, very good. He lives in Indiana. He's also once worked as a civil servant in the Gambia, has accomplished a lot, and he's in the health field here. So Alice is also something that, probably can say a little bit about himself, and then next, the other side is Alice from Germany. Alice is also an accomplished individual, has businesses that he does that affect our lives. So Alice is also a contributor to this show. Alice, welcome. Yeah. So without unless you guys want to just take like 2 minutes or 1 minute to introduce yourself, but if not, then we can just jump into the topic. Because we had some technical difficulties. We're supposed to start at 11 Eastern and then 3 o'clock Gambian time, but we just resolved the technical difficulty now. So now we heading for the game. Right. All right. So let's jump right into it. Right. All right. So
Yes.
Dr. Ali, can you just give us what like your take is on this first issue, which is the COVID-19? What the next crisis like that? What do we expect, and what kind of preparation we need in place? Then we can talk about the aftermath of COVID-19. We will have a question and answer session once you just deliver, and Baldeh is just joining us now. So he would take it from there. But let's just go right in, and then yeah, let's make the our conversation as as solid as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. First of all, thank you for speaking on this important topic. And the bittersweet part of this is that we should have had this resolved back when we had Ebola, back when malaria was here, all of the global crisis that we had. So we have to get to the point where more women and men are increasingly dying now, and now we're paying attention. Unfortunately, there's a disparity in our community that's allowing us to die at a higher rate and at a global pandemic, which is the real epidemic. But there are sufficiencies that are in place now through technologies, through adherences to programming and planning, that we're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again. My first taste of this was here in the United States during Hurricane Katrina. And I bring that in because it touched on some of the things that are happening now. We had a mass influx of something that happened that they say they weren't prepared for, yet it happened, and then they were kind of bridging their gap, if they will, and they would bring everybody back into some sanity. And I noticed that the greater depravity was to women and children. As we were trying to reconcile ourselves, we have emergency preparedness and readiness programs. We put together an equal valor to this when we had Zika and SARS and Ebola, but we never put a measure into place. So after COVID-19, I decided, and not only am I going to put it in place, but I'm going to head it. And one of the benefits of being retired, as you mentioned, is that now I have the time. So the Federation of International Human Rights, Gender and Human Rights, has been formed to do just that. So I'm going to speak on some of the topics that we are talking about in bringing this forward and making sure that we have a plan in place intentionally, that we will make sure that there are people that will be able to access it, that there are provisions in place for everyone to be represented. And then finally, we're going to bring in the scope of it to be able to broaden it to all access to protections. And there's going to be just 4 points that I speak on, but each of them are going to have different topics underneath them. So I'm going to speak on 4 points, and each point has about 2 or 3 mentions in them. So I'll go pretty quick, but I think it's worthy for all of us to understand what we're doing and how we're doing it to bridge the gap in each of our communities. Now, this program is a pilot program. It's never been done. We're making history literally in the continent, because this program was designed and designed to protect women in waiting or pregnant women. And these are protections that are the most deprived, because most of the women that are dying through this are women that are more susceptible to childbirth. Now, we have the age category with the elders, and we have the younger category with the minors. But in between, the women that are being susceptible are women in waiting and women that are newly birthed, that have a lowered immune system. So I noticed that if we don't have women having babies, then we don't have an increase in population. So if elders start to die and children are dying, who is repopulating this? Who is reintegrating the people that are of the culture, of the community, of the town, of the country, and bringing that forward? So we're putting these measures in place for women, but again, this program can be for any demographic, and you'll see in a minute. So the 4 points are intentional inclusion, and I use that word intentional inclusion because there is a greater understanding as to what needs to come intentionally. It's not being a part of, is included in. So being a part of is my husband and his wife. No, we're going to start talking married couple. So instead of saying husband and wife, we're going to say this is a couple. So there is an intentional inclusion in the word so that you will see them as one instead of seeing them as 2 different entities. Next one is accessibility, making sure everyone is able to get to it. There's a difference between inclusion and then accessibility. The next one is affordability. This is making sure that everyone can deal with it at their level, deal with it financially now when things are rough, and then once things get a little better, can be able to invest back into that program to be able to keep it sustaining. And then the last one, of course, are social protections. This is making sure that after the crisis is over, that we don't have to worry about it happening again. And we make sure that the whole community puts together a plan and program to keep this program alive. So let's go into intentional inclusion. This is going to be, the first one is going to be proper planning with agenda. Now, I'm here in Atlanta helping with the riots and the race riots that are happening here because the United Nations needed a couple of representatives to come down and kind of get a bird's eye view of what's happening and be able to settle it internationally. And of course, here in Atlanta, we have a different variation of population. We have some that are from our country, the Gambia, and then there's some from Ghana and Ethiopia and Nigeria and all over. And we want to make sure that everyone is included in the solution to this. So even though you may not have been born here, maybe you're migrated here, maybe you're an expatriate, but we want to make sure that you are a part of the solution. So therein lies the agenda with intention. This is making sure that we have an agenda, that everyone's voice is heard and everyone is a part of the solution based on the needs. The next one is proper representation. That means, are we going to have a Gambian represent someone from Swaziland? Are we going to have someone from Egypt represent someone from South Africa? No, we're going to have someone that represents the people, for the people, by the people. And this may be representation in a smaller cluster. So maybe we'll have the Gambians of East Atlanta, or we'll have the Kenyans of North Africa. So we'll have this little group that is going to be represented, and then each of the groups are going to be a diatribe in making sure that the conglomerate is met. So if every group is conceptualized and have a leader for it, then everyone will be represented in the solution. And then the last part of inclusion is community involved stakeholders. That means that everyone is going to get a piece of this. Everyone is going to be a part of this. Even though we have leaders for the clusters, we're going to make sure that everyone in the cluster has a voice. The elder, the young person, the youth. We're even going to have people that are displaced, people that are maybe a part of a refugee camp, that maybe not of the land, but in the land. Even they will have a voice in this. Because if everyone does not speak, the voice of everyone will not be heard. So we want to make sure that that's intentional in the inclusion. The next one, part two, is accessibility. Now, accessibility comes in a myriad of words, and we always use this when we want to be gender correct, or we want to be humanistically correct. We always say accessibility. Okay, but accessibility can't be something in the lower river region that the upper river region can't access. You can't have a program in one area and say it's all for Gambia, and then no one can get to it. Or vice versa. You can't have something in Banjul and expect someone in the West Bank to be able to access. So we have to make sure that it is inclusive of the area and the voice of the people, and then be able to be accessible to everyone. So we may have to have different factions that are set up in different areas, and that makes sense. So most people say, well, Ammeena, that's going to cost a lot of money. No, it has to do with intention. If you have a budget to do this program, the budget has to include each of the regions that you're going to fund. And that makes sense. We can't just say we're going to make it for Banjul and then the North Bank doesn't get any representation, or the lower river region doesn't get any funding. We have to make sure that every program that we have for the post-COVID and any disaster has to be inclusive of everyone intentionally in the beginning. Again, being included is not a part of. We want to make sure that it's not husband and wife, it is the couple when we make this program accessible to everyone. The next one is we want to make sure that it is communally attributed. That means tribe, religion, culture. We want to make sure everyone has a say. It is so very important to do this. And I'm using that voice in all of these components because it's very important that everyone speaks. Not just those that are elected as representatives, but those that may be tribal elders, that may be kings or chiefs of their community. These people have a say. The young student that's coming out of med school, they have a say. The child in primary school, they have a say. We may not see it as true, but if they're telling you that they need certain things in their area, they need certain things to better learn, we need to hear this. So rightfully so, if we're dealing with a catastrophe, each person's needs during that catastrophe has to be upheld. One of the measures that we're looking toward is having a fundamental sustainability for water, food, and medicine. That means before and after any catastrophe, We want to make sure that there is a solid shareholder investment. That means everyone contributing to a sustainable water, food, and medicine in the communities. This means, if nothing else, if we don't have clothes on our back and we don't have shoes on our feet, we have water, food, and medicine. And these are things that we're noticing is the depravity here in the United States when we deal with the morbidity and mortality rates of people of color, especially women during childbirth. We die at a higher rate here in the United States. We're supposed to be a developed country, but we die at a higher rate once we get pregnant. And we're trying to figure that out. We're trying to make sure that is happening is the sustainability of this program intentionally. And we have to have full focus on this, because this is what's going to bring that curve down to a flattened line. And I think this is also what we should have done in the beginning of this, which some of us were saying. I'll put that out there in the beginning of this, so that we make sure that there was a sustainable piece to this for those that are of international borders or foreign parentage. Okay, so let's go into affordability, which is the third part. We have to look at short and long term. And this is what we were talking about as far as the financing, short and long term. We got to deal with right now, and then we have to deal with it after the catastrophe is over. Rebuilding lives, making it affordable to rebuild our life, and then making a substance of change in that newness. That means we can't keep doing the same thing expecting something different. Even in a catastrophe, there has to be new norms that have to come out of that. So we have to make sure that this is what it is that we bridge as far as that gap. And we have to make sure that it's clear and concise in our planning. And that is short and long term. The next one is access to equity, and that is the financial protections and accountability. There has to be someone that's sitting behind that desk once that check is struck, okay? That means we have to make sure that there are people that are of integrity that is dealing with funding. The biggest piece we had was CDC America and CDC Africa was the funding. I think if we had greater accessibility and what we said, access to that equity, access to that piece, I think we could have saved a little bit more. We were so busy rushing to be a solution so we can get that good photo op that we weren't doing it integrally. So many people were coming to us saying, especially as a first responder in the United States, they were coming to us asking us for ready solutions, but we were so busy putting out fires that we didn't see that blaze that was happening over there, especially for certain demographics. And we were doing it because the camera was wanting us to do this. So rather than be hastily in doing things, we need to have a plan and work the plan. That's before and after the catastrophe. Do practice drills to this equity. So that means if something happens, let's put it in practice now so that we have it ready. That access to equity means that we have to be integral in what it is we're putting together in this inclusion. And that integrity has to be greater than the understanding of what it is that's going forward in the quick rush to solutions. Then we have to have an investment in health regulations that cap costs. This happened with me personally, and I put this in as a measure because I noticed that people that are dealing with an illness pre-catastrophe has a worse advantage during the catastrophe. Case in point, those that have a weakened immune system when COVID happened. I got the virus back in January, right after Kobe Bryant died. I remember reading the paper, and I was convalescing in my bed when I read that Kobe Bryant died, and I'm like, And if you notice in the USA paper that I was actually reading, I took a picture of it because one of my girlfriends couldn't believe that Kobe Bryant had died, and I was taking a picture of the news article. Right to the left of it, it says, testing is still being done for this coronavirus. And I never read that article. Here it is, I'm in the medical field. I was so busy focused on Kobe Bryant that I didn't even see that they were saying testing was being done in January for this coronavirus. So now I'm like, So now I'm Googling, what is this coronavirus? Well, before it was rapid chest congestion, and it was this medical terms, meaning there was this closing in of the chest cavity. It feels like you're building a fluid. It's almost pneumonia-like symptoms. And I'm like, wow, I have that. So I was like, do I have a pneumonia or do I have this thing called corona? I dismissed it as an upper respiratory infection and just kind of moved on.
Wow.
Well, not even 90 days later, we were in a corona epidemic. So now I'm like, wow, I had the virus and didn't even know it. But the cure, as you see now, is washing your hands, resting, and protecting yourself. That's the greatest cure. So now, if that's the greatest cure right now, you know, big pharmacology is going to come up with this vaccine that they're going to have, and they're going to start injecting people probably tomorrow on an unproven, untested, unregulated vaccine that they're hastily putting out there. But how much is that going to cost? Well, right now it's looking like they can do it for about $1 in Ghana, but CDC US is talking like $50, $60. So if the same thing is so cost effective here in Ghana at $1 an injection, why is it so expensive in the United States? So therein lies the understanding of we need to cap these costs. Because if it is very effective in the United States and very effective in Ghana, yet you're selling it for $1 in Ghana, $1 US in Ghana, then it's going to be even more inaccessible to those that want to have it in the United States. Those that can't afford that $50. Those that can't afford that understanding of maybe you may need to do it in 2 doses versus 1 dose. So that's $50 per dose. So now we may need to see this as a bridging a hardship for those that really want to get well, which is their human right to be well. And the efficacy of medicine is to get them well without reliance on cost. That is one of the things we raise our hand to in the Hippocratic Oath, to be able to not delay more pain or more advantageous hurt and harm to the person. First, do no harm. And first, do no harm could be financially. So we don't want to make this a hardship for someone. So we want to use that as affordability. Last one, protections. We want to make sure that there is a public oversight committee that goes into this in the beginning. Public oversight. Now, we don't have a catastrophe anymore, but the public oversight is to be a public health conglomerate and a public service conglomerate. That means we're going to keep putting things out to keep us healthy, and we're going to keep having advantageous measures to make sure we stay healthy. So if we have to put PSAs out on social media about proper hand washing, let's keep putting that out there, not during the pandemic, but after the pandemic. Let's make that a lesson in our academia for our young children. Get them used to washing their hands at 2 and 3 and 4 years old. So by time that they are in high school or they are in college, they're so used to doing it that it's not a bad thing. And then let's make sure that there is a continuum of care to keep them healthy. Maybe promoting eating fresh fruits and vegetables on YouTube, making sure that the news promotes a sustainable food source that we make sure is compatible to making sure everyone has this accessibility to it. The last thing is data protections and ownership of that collection. Now, most people, they kind of leave the room when I talk about this. And you can always tell corporate America who buys this data and they share it with their own conglomerate within to make them better than what they are. But data collection should not be overlooked. This should not be something that we sleep on. We are the owners of our own data. If I am an African-American woman from the Gambia that is over the age of 50, I'm just going to leave that at that. That is over the age of 50. And that is in the medical field. That is my data. That is 5 points that says that this is who I am. That does not have the right for, let's say, Sam in his corporation to now take that data and sell it to Ebrima. That's not fair for him to do that, because now what he did is he took what Ammeena is and made it seem like that she's a part of Sam's corporation. And because Sam is in good deeds with Ebrima, he is going to now sell it to Ebrima. That's wrong. We need to have protections in place that are protected for the people, by the people, of the people. So there is where that oversight committee is, to make sure that that information is protected. There's a difference between privacy and confidentiality. Now there's a third person in this, and that's called a protector. And that social oversight is going to protect that data to make sure that if Ebrima has this new technology that he wants to bring out, that it's not pushed on Ammeena. Because Ammeena, oh, well, you're an African-American woman, or you're from Ghana, or you're from from Gambia, and you're in Ghana, that you should do this now. No, Ebrima, that's not what that information was supposed to be used for. That wasn't to be used to target Ammeena. That was supposed to be used to help Ammeena. So now we need to make sure that these social protections include data protections and oversight ownership. So we have that right to either sign it away to let Sam use it or not sign it away. But Sam doesn't have the right to come in and take that data, sell it to Ebrima so that he can get a profit. This is really huge, because then once he sells it to Ebrima, he can manipulate it however he wants to. And he can make now, instead of me being African, Ammeena could be from Scotland or someplace, who knows? And then he can make it seem like that because Ammeena, who was from the Gambia on paper, is now from Scotland. Now it looks like it's popular in Scotland because he's manipulating this data. He's manipulating to make it seem like that Ammeena in Scotland is now is cured of this, when really I'm from the Gambia. So I need this to be seen in this piece. And again, a lot of people, they frown at this because it would make Sam lose a profit. It would make Ebrima lose a profit. So now they're saying, Ammeena, we can't do this because whatever, but they're only saying that because they can't get the data in. But this data is useful only to the people that it's from. So we need to use it to be what it is they need to be in their area, not use it for conglomerates in other countries or in other jurisdictions. And that piece closes what it is that I'm looking for as far as the 4 points, which is inclusion, accessibility, affordability, and protections. And my closing piece is that we need to make sure that these programs are sustainable in whatever country or area you're in. That means funding has to go to this. And I can speak on funding forever, but funding has to go to this. This has to be a ministry, and this ministry has to be put into place under the Ministry of Health, and it has to be emergency preparedness and readiness. Now, we may have something for disasters. Okay, that sounds good environmentally, but the emergency preparedness and readiness is what we need to put into place for the humanistic factor. As a proud Gambian, as someone that is here in the United States, I know what it's like to be in the middle of a catastrophe and not have help here in the United States. So I can only imagine what is happening in the homeland. So as it was mentioned, I am making that trip to the homeland, and I am going to make that as a permanent trip so that I can bring what we're doing here in the United States home to better it. And right now, as we speak, as of Friday, the First Lady had this plan in action. She has it in front of her. She wants to do a Zoom meeting to actually meet and greet. So this is exciting to be able to have this going forward for the community. And once approved, it'll be a part of the Gambian dialect. And I'm gonna make it a household word because I really want this to go forward so that we won't be struck by this. I mean, we were one of the few countries that had the lowest amount of those affected by COVID, and we wanna keep it that way. And clearly whatever happened worked, but we want to make sure that it wasn't an accidental happenstance, that we want to make it a permanent thing so that we keep down this infection rate and we keep upping the immune system to include the immune system of the women that are repopulating each of our countries everywhere. So thank you so very much for having me. Thank you so very much for having me on this panel, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ammeena. Well elaborated. She has touched almost everything from the the international inclusion, the proper representation, community involvement, of the stakeholder accessibility, religious aspect, and you name it. Now, as we are looking at the whole context of COVID, what we was trying to say is that we need to look at the crisis that we have now and learn from that and prepare for tomorrow, in case we fall into such a crisis again. And then also, what are the preparation in place for the after COVID? What are the plans, the strategies, so that we can sail through this smoothly to the next level? So it's a lot covered, but I will allow my panelists to jump in if anybody has any question. With any clarity or any concern or comment, please. We don't have enough time as we had technical issues. I mean, that's why we started late. But again, you can call 917-974-1095 to ask questions or to also make comments. Who is coming next?
Mhm.
Who wanna build the cat?
Maybe Alex.
Comments, questions, observations, clarity on what C has just spoke about.
Well, I joined late.
You didn't miss anything. You didn't miss anything, by the way. You
Okay.
we were having some technical
Well,
difficulties.
Yeah, right
well,
there.
well, I know that like I told you, Sawaneh, I had an interview with Dr. Ammeena at the height of this COVID-19 here in March at Central Park. It was in fact an ordeal we had there. So I mean, we had a very interesting interview. Like I told you, which I'm editing. I'm glad that she's expounded on her project, and we all hope that like her understanding, because of our advantage as a medical practitioner, to understand we were talking about the huge ramification of HIV, COVID-19 on
Right.
African continent and in the Gambia. And even at the time we had this interview during the first week of March, the Gambia recorded only one case. There was no fatality as at that time. So as a matter of fact, I'm very concerned about her thorough explanation with regard to the vaccine, and with regard to the fact that, you know, when this vaccine is made, it is going to pose as a kind of, instead of being an antidote, it will instead be a big hurdle for a lot of people, especially those who are here, because $60, you know, is really expensive, you know, for a lot of people. Yeah, you're talking about unemployment. You're talking about so many factors that are militating against, you know, how we, you know, I mean, eat our daily bread, you know, and all those factors. Then you go to Africa also. Well, WHO and the health authorities have given a kind of gloomy picture of Africa, that it is, you know, the likes of Bill Gates, that Africa is going to be hard hit, you know, there will be more death. So, I mean, for them, they are the prophets of doom, which is very, very bad, because the kind of statistics they are given, well, some countries in Africa are really being hard hit, you know, by this COVID-19. But
Yes.
you realize that despite all this gloomy picture, we still, I mean, we still marching. We, still so for the statistics for the health authorities, yes, they are good. They are good for us to be very, I mean, kind of cautious.
There is a intentional help for everyone. So it's not just picking and choosing who gets help, the wealthy, the poor, the well-to-do on the west side versus the poor on the east. No, we're not doing that. We're making sure that this is a global effort, that everyone is, because just like you see in COVID-19, there wasn't, the coronavirus didn't have it, it was no prejudice. It doesn't make a difference if you were wealthy, if you were poor, you were still gonna get it if you were gonna get it. And you were more susceptible to getting it if you didn't have proper health care. But I consider myself comfortable in life, and I got it. So what does that mean? So that means that those that are not accessible to the things that I'm accessible, they're more likely to get it as well. So you have to think on those lines, that if I can get it when I think I'm comfortable, then those that are still struggling, those that are still coming up, those are still developing, they're the ones that are going to be hit the hardest. So this is why the plan was put in place. And this was literally at my sickbed writing this down. That's why it's so fresh in my mind, because I remember
Sorry, I was on mute. Sam, do you have something to ask before I jump in, Alice and Sam? And any concern, any comment?
So it was
Funny.
Thank
Sam,
you very much.
maybe
Ammeena. Sam, do you have something to say?
Now go ahead, and I'll say something after you. Go ahead, Alice.
Anyway, Ammeena, thank you very much. And I was also gone. The way you explained, I could understand the points you brought here. And yeah, my contribution is just about the collectiveness to fight the situation, which I always used to say, we should not try to politicize the situation, or but it's a problem of everybody. So we have to put aside these political or religious problems aside and try to fight the situation today and later. About the vaccine, I mean, many people used to say also that is the trick, because they want to have something that everybody can pay. But there are other easy means which people are fighting this COVID-19. A very easy method is just water and heat, and later they put their hair dryer on the nose and they come out to be well again. Maybe it's a miracle, I don't know. But people, when the whole world is waiting for, because that's why they are fighting, and they are not working collectively, because every country wants to say, I have it, so that everybody can come and spend his money there. So, and true that many people are dying because COVID-19 don't wait for that. So, I mean, you got it. You didn't take any medicine. You are sitting here now.
None.
So
Nothing. I think the most I took was warm tea and some sorrel.
Yeah, I used to hear it. No, it just warm because I saw a scientific test about this virus. They put the virus in the laboratory. They heated it to 53 degrees. They could see that it collapsed. So this virus don't like heat at all.
Exactly.
And they were using for SARS a treatment called heat reset therapy.
That's right.
This heat reset therapy, all these people knew about it, all these scientists. So why are they waiting people? Because they know that SARS-19 and the COVID virus is almost the same. And they knew that this can be treated also this way. But I used to say water is cheap. You understand what I mean? Water is cheap. Because it's the same thing I used to tell people. The technology is there to drive a car with water.
Right.
So why are we not doing that? Because it's not bringing any government anything inside. So it's
I can answer that very quickly, and that is there is no money in cure. Yeah. If you cure someone or something of something, there is no reason for you to keep coming back.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That's it. There must be
if you see the name, just look at the name of the organization. We're always quick to say CDC. I like to say Center of Disease Control because I like you to hear what I'm saying. Center of Disease Control, not disease elimination, not disease eradication, disease control, because they know if they control the disease and they get it at a safe level, there'll always be money made in medicines and vaccines that can keep them going. So they don't want to eradicate it. I'm speaking truth. And that's probably why I retired, because I know a lot of my colleagues were putting that scarlet letter on my chest because they knew that I was speaking truth. If you cure somebody, there is no reason for them to come back to you. You can't make any more money. So what they would rather do is they would rather get it to a safe level. Listen to how they say it. They say there is certain bacteria in the water, but it's a safe drinking level. Why would you allow it to be a safe drinking level if you know bacteria is in the water? Because they know that there's going to be 1 or 2 people that's going to get sick off of that same water, and they're going to bring them into the hospital. What do you do when you go into the hospital? You start tracking a bill. And when you start tracking that bill, that hospital makes money, the doctors are going to make money, the insurance company makes money, and Big Pharma makes money. Big Pharmacology makes money. So as soon as you get sick, everybody starts getting paid. But if you say, no, I'm good, I'm going to go ahead and get that sorrel and that warm tea, and I'm going to stay at home and I'm just going to rest, and you don't make any money, now it's, oh, it could be this, and they do the fear factor. oh, well, you know, you could get pneumonia and you could suffocate and you could, but I'm here. I'm here.
I mean, I'm not going to advise
alhamdulillah,
anybody,
I'm
but
here.
I'm not going to advise anybody, but I mean, as far as there is no medicine for it, I think that's the best way to cure ourselves at the moment. And I think it's working because
Well,
I've seen
the
a
greatest
lot of
cure
people
for this
who come
is
out and
washing
say,
your
oh, I
hands.
got it, I did this, and I was okay. So I don't know
Exactly.
why they are trying to hide this thing, because many people post it even in social media. What's the next day out of that place? So that means maybe the pharma industry, they want to reduce us, as I said before, especially the
Well, they
black
can't.
community
They
in
can't.
America.
And they should have known that they couldn't reduce us. I mean, back when they did all the experiments, they should have known we are entirely too viable of a people. You're not getting rid of us. You're not getting rid of us at all. But I need to say this in the conclusion to that, because I do have another meeting at 1 o'clock. But I do have to say this. If we know, we as Gambians, we have a small country. We're about 1.2 million right now, and that's about the size of New York City. We have about 1.5 million in New York City. So literally, the size of the entire country of Gambia fits in New York City. So to know that is to know we have this small demographic that we're helping. And if we can get past the tribal and the political things, and we can finally set a tone for equality, true equality in healthcare anyway, that's all I can speak for. We can see that healthcare can be like Tylenol. Tylenol, and I use this adage because Tylenol, everybody takes. You get a headache, you get a Tylenol. You take
I
Tylenol.
took one tomorrow yesterday.
However, right. However, if you have cancer, Tylenol is like eating Tootsie Rolls or candy or something, because it's a different type of pain. It is a different type of hurt. So you have to understand that although we have a pain relief, we have to begin to start looking for these solutions in different levels of pain relief so that everyone can get that access without having to spend millions of dollars to do this hasty cure. We haven't tested. I wouldn't take any vaccine into my system until you tested at least 5 to 8 years.
Yeah.
Years.
Anyway, I wanted to say something because I mean, you are right. But you know, many people, especially in Gambia, they were told that they should not take any vaccine with the fear that these people will come and test us, because there was the news. So we have to tell the people the kids, the mothers, that they take the kids to go and take their vaccination for the other diseases, because many mothers from this news, they try to neglect that, which is also not good for the kids later. They have to go and give the chance the kids so that they can take their normal vaccination, like polio and all these things. Not because it's over the media, so every mother will say no. You know, even if it is a good vaccine, like polio and all these things. And these are very important that our kids have it. You know, we have to tell them we're talking about vaccine, about COVID-19, so that they know the difference.
But these are tested vaccines. Polio was tested for at least 12 years before they started mass producing it. They're asking for people to take these pre-trial COVID vaccines, and they're hoping that they do something with it. I would test it. I wouldn't trust it. I would give it. I promise you. I would not. And I promise you, if I have any say so, it would not touch the Gambia for at least 10 years.
No, it's dangerous.
Yeah,
that's just me.
Everybody is testing, and nobody knows which one is helping. But then we take the natural things, I think will save our life. And then my next thing is, you were saying about representative, that Ghana cannot be a representative of Gambia or the other way around. That topic is very interesting, because I always talk about it. How can Gambia, for example, try to have a consulate or ambassador being another nationality? And that was not from Barrow, that was before Barrow. And we thought that when Barrow comes, we'll change it. But it's still happening. And where I'm talking with you, we are having a consulate from these people. And nobody goes there. No Gambian believe him. Nobody goes there. He cannot have any Gambian here in Germany. You understand? People were happy that maybe Barrow will change that, but it's not their business. I don't know. You know, the boys are suffering here when they have problems. They have nowhere to go. They are afraid of this man because he's from the same nationality with them. You can even tell him something and he'll tell the police. You never know. It's not our nationality. You know, how can, it's even a shame for Gambian. How can, every country is represented by his people. Only a Gambia is accepting somebody from Brussels or anywhere to represent the Gambia. These people, they should not even know the government affairs, as they used to say, it's a secret. You know, how can you allow that and give that to non-nationalities? This should be cleared.
I addressed that in a disposition because coming from the United States, I thought I had a better advantage to be able to serve the Gambian people, being Gambian. I addressed that, and of course, I was dismissed. I want to believe that it was because I want to believe that it was because I'm from the United States. I don't want to believe it's because of this little skin that I'm in, and I definitely don't believe it's because I'm a woman. I just want to believe that it's because I'm from the United States and I was trying to represent the Gambia. And I think that's what, and I want to hold on to that because if anything else proves otherwise,
being black is even advantage, you know. But these white people do represent.
Well, I tried, and I'm still trying because that was one of my points that for us to be the Gambians to come back and take on those positions so that those positions will be held in a greater accord integrally. The ethic will be there, and we would be known as a country that had that highest moral value, that we're going to make sure that we represent properly. But again, I'm only one person. I can get people behind me, but again, if the government doesn't see it, we may need to do it for ourselves. And I'm not going against the government, but I am for the people. So I don't know how that's going to pan out.
Yeah.
But, but I know Sam has something.
So, yeah, Sam can come in. Yeah, Sam can come in before Dr. We'll let you go to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Because of technical difficulties, we had this delay. But we are on time, I guess, catching up with everything. So Sam, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I will make it short and simple. And, you know, I just wanted to thank Dr. Ammeena definitely for your time. It's definitely an honor to have somebody like you on this show and really give your perspective as to what you're working on. And just like one of the things that you talked about, you know, I think about Gambia. You know, when you think about Gambia, how can we make this work in Gambia? And I'm really happy to hear that you are communicating with the First Lady and getting this in there and everything. Yeah, that's a great thing. Everything, everything that we do, I always say is proper planning is very important because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You know, that's the way I look at things. And you really hit this nail on the head and had a great presentation of this. And I hope that this can get in the Gambian people head and really have that mindset of what you're talking about. And this is what we want to implement in Gambia and move forward post COVID-19, because we cannot continue to operate the same way as business as usual and expect a different result. That's not going to happen. And Gambia, changing people's mindset, and the way you said this too is intentional inclusion is very important there. And I really hope that you have everyone's support and getting this done without politicizing it, because in Gambia, one of the things that this is one of the things that I think about, you know, when it comes to what are the challenges that you will hit, you know, in getting this into Gambia, is politicizing it. And people like to think, especially a sitting government, any sitting government like to use certain things to be in their advantage by saying this is our government that's bringing this. So we're going to first, instead of the diversity and inclusion that you talk about, they may say that we want to look for people that supports government in our party, and those are the people that we're going to serve, not anybody else, and that's not going to work. So I'm really, that is a challenge and that is a concern for me. But the intentional inclusion that you said, you know, proper planning with an agenda. That's great. You talked about that very well. Accessibility is important. It's key. You know, thinking about the infrastructure in Gambia, just having the right people that represent people, the right people in the right places is going to be important, because it will make accessibility very, very well. And of course, the affordability that you talked about, to bringing a common thing on the table for everyone there is important. I'm not really concerned about the social protection in Gambia. Yes, it's important, and yeah, you know, when you think about the overall picture of what you're doing, social protection becomes the key. There's a key role in there. I think more of the planning, getting the right people in the right places to support this idea and move it forward is very, very, very important. And I can't thank you enough for this, and I really appreciate you being on this show and sharing this with us. That's why I felt like today I just need to shut up and listen to you.
Bless your heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for that. I know Dr. Ammeena doesn't have much time because of our technical problem, but I had you mention about working with the First Lady about it. You know, something to look forward to. Like Sam has just said, Gambia is a different entity when it comes to like having to go there with ideas, trying to put forward. You know, there's one culture that we still have, which is but that hasn't been uprooted yet. Although we uprooted brutality and dictatorship, but that culture called corruption, undercut pay, under the table, and things like that, and grabbing your idea, if grabbing and running with it. If they cannot get it their way, what is gonna happen is they're gonna rather block it rather than getting it the way that you wanted it, so you can make it the intention, you can make it reach the intention that you wanted it to. So it's a lot of work. It needs a lot of guidance. Like I said, people don't usually do things without finding out loopholes where they can benefit individually rather than collectively. And you are here, United States citizen, who is in love with Gambia, and then looking forward to live there. So you have a lot at stake. The fact that some of you would be iconic because you can kind of demonstrate the proper way that we should be living, and we should come and be patriotic to our nation instead of being kind of destructive by just looking at what is going in my pocket. So it's a lot of information. I know you're going to do a midwife and all those things that you have great intention for to improve our healthcare. Myself and your husband have spoken a lot, at length about those things, and I'll always be there to give you guidance. But I'm telling you, our people haven't changed much, really, when it comes to that. Corruption is not punishable there. The leadership has been so weak on it because they're benefiting from it as well. Nothing has changed on that end. There's a lot of things that need to be squared out to have a successful project in the Gambia without being undermined. So we all look forward. I mean, thank you for your time. It's a lot to talk about. We'll get you on this show again,
yes,
so that we can discuss, because I think this is not sufficient enough. A lot of people are picking our brain on this discussion today, because you are giving out a lot of insights, because you have two demography here. You have lived you're from here in the United States, and then you're not in like backing up anything. You're not leaving you're letting all the cans out of the can. And again, you are also familiarize yourself in the Gambia, which is a great asset. So we look forward.
I am from the Gambia. That's what most people don't think. They say, "Oh, well, you speak too well to be from the Gambia." I am. I can't help where I was born, but I am. So on my mother's side, I am Gambian. So I use that as. Say, I couldn't hear you. Couldn't.
You were born in Kintekuna.
Yes, yes. I'm Fula from the Griot people. So I found once I found that there was a place for me other than the United States, I took homage in that. And knowing that being Fulani and knowing that there is a piece for me there knowing that there is a people for me there, then there was a responsibility for me there. So yeah, I have to take on that challenge, and I have to be that person for that group, and I have to be that representative. So if that means that I have to help to go on a board somewhere or do something integrally to make sure that all voices are there, then I probably will be that opposition, because I'm going to be against what it is that they're thinking. So but it'll be a good thing. I mean, I'm not into politics, but I am into the people. So if I got to play that game a little bit, you know, we will have to play that game. But I'm for the people, and if you're not for the people, then you're against progress.
That's it.
So,
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you
I think, you know,
very
we can let Dr. Ali go and then take care of the meeting that
Okay.
he's
Thank you.
planning to get
Yeah.
into, and then we're just gonna continue wrapping it up. Yep. Thank you.
Nice to see
thank
you
you so
here.
much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, so guys, this is wonderful. You know, a lot of people have benefited from this, I'm pretty sure. So we have like, we can just wrap it up in like next 10 minutes. If we have any other thing that you guys want to talk about, or you just want to elaborate on, Baldeh, you know, if you have anything, alas, Sam.
I mean, I wanted to talk about the fundings he was talking about, but I said, okay, but if about the funding, we have to leave some with it. How to fund the whole thing after the COVID-19. I think Sam is the best man for it.
Sam, I'll just give you the
How,
go ahead. What do you think?
Oh, Alice, you know, just like you, Sawaneh was talking about. I think when it comes to funding, first things that I think of is the corruption in there. You know, no matter how much funds we have, you know, definitely corruption is going to play part in this. And money may be diverted into some other things that it was not originally intended for. And that's going to really have an impact on Gambia, you know, as we know.
right?
And in my mind, when we have something this important coming to our country, we really need to make sure that really need to make sure that leadership is on board with this 100%, and making sure that whatever funding we have for this, and of course our National Assembly can also put budget together, because they do the budgeting, they approve the budget that we're going to spend. The National Assembly will have a key role in this, and really budget for this. And once they budget for this, it becomes the executive role, the executive branch role, to make sure that the funding is used for the intended purpose, and the money or funds not diverted into anything else, and try to close all the loopholes for corruption. Otherwise, it's not going to work. As we all know, Gambia, corruption is a big deal there. And something like this, for us, for all of us here on this platform, we all need to really get on our platforms and fight corruption and educate our people about corruption. And if corruption is not, if we have any leader in the Gambia that's not really fighting corruption, we need to fight to remove that leader. Yeah, we need to remove that leader. Yeah, that's the way we need to go until we get somebody there that can really, that will be in from day one, will be fighting corruption from day one. Because once they get in and they get corrupted, that's it, period. We can't change them around, because then the corruption will go on, because the leader is corrupted, is very difficult for him to change anybody else, for him to try to put his foot down on people if the leader himself is corrupt. So those are things that we really need to pay attention to, and really work with our National Assembly to have a budget for this. But at the end of the day, how is that funding going to be controlled? How are we going to have everything computerized so that we can look at everything on a weekly basis and going down to monthly basis, what was spent and what was it spent on, and was that intended purpose? And if this is the budget for the month, did we spend according to the budget or within the budget? How can we stay within the budget? Gambia does not have that discipline. That's why every year they can't balance their budget. They don't even come close let alone balancing the budget. They can't even get close to balancing the budget because they don't have the financial discipline. They don't have that.
That's what I wanted to say. Many people, they used to say, I don't know whether I'm right, they used to say, in Gambia, money comes in, it will be advertised. But how it is spent at the end, nobody cares. So that means people say it's a paradise for corruption.
Yep, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
don't know whether I'm right when I hear
You are
people
right.
saying that.
You are right. You are right by saying that because, you know, the accountability